Tissue test tells you something a soil test can't. It shows you what the plant has actually taken up and is using right now, and not just what's sitting in the soil. That's an important difference because a field can test perfectly fine for a nutrient, yet the crop can still be deficient if something is preventing that nutrient from getting into the plant. That's why tissue testing has become such a useful tool. It gives you a snapshot of what's happening inside the crop at a point in the growing season when there's still time to make an adjustment. First things you'll notice on a tissue test report is that some nutrients are listed as a percentage, while others are shown in parts per million or ppm. That's simply because the plant needs different nutrients in different amounts. For example, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, calcium, and magnesium are the macronutrients, so the plant uses them in relatively large quantities. Reporting them as a percentage of the plant's dry weight makes the numbers easy to understand. Micronutrients like boron, zinc, manganese, and copper are only needed in tiny amounts, so parts per million gives a much more practical way to show those values. Every nutrient on the report is also given a status, and understanding these labels makes the report much easier to read. Deficient, listed in red, means the plant does not have enough of that nutrient right now, so it's something that you'll want to address. Responsive, listed in yellow, means the level isn't critically low, but the crop is still likely to benefit if it's corrected. It's not urgent, but it's worth paying attention to. Adequate, listed in green, means everything is where it should be and no action is needed. And once you understand those three categories, you can quickly see where the crop needs the most attention. One of the most important parts of any tissue test is the nutrient ratios, because nutrients don't work independently, they work together. Two ratios that you'll see highlighted in this report are the nitrogen-to-sulfur, or N/S ratio, and the nitrogen-to-potassium, or N/K ratio. They get special attention because nitrogen depends on both of these nutrients to be used efficiently by the plant. Nitrogen and sulfur are a good example of why these ratios matter. Sulfur is needed to convert nitrogen into the protein that drives plant growth. If there's plenty of nitrogen but not enough sulfur, the plant can't fully use the nitrogen that's already in the plant. So even though the nitrogen level might look adequate on the report, the crop can still show signs of nitrogen deficiency because the sulfur is limiting it. A nitrogen to sulfur ratio between about 10:1 and 15:1 is considered a healthy balance. In this specific report, the nitrogen to sulfur ratio is a 14.6:1, which is within the adequate range. The nitrogen to potassium ratio tells you something a little different. Nitrogen and potassium both play major roles in plant growth, water movement, and stalk strength. When that ratio gets too far out of balance, it can be a sign that the crop has more of one nutrient than it can effectively use because the other is holding it back. In corn, a healthy N/K ratio is usually close to 1:1. Since the plant takes up potassium in amounts similar to, or sometimes even greater than nitrogen, on this test, the N/K ratio is 0.9:1, which is right on the edge of the responsive range, leaning towards needing a small amount of nitrogen for the amount of potassium that is already in the plant. There are plenty of nutrient interactions in the plant, but these two ratios are emphasized because they have one of the biggest influence on nitrogen efficiency. Looking at them alongside the individual nutrient values gives you a much clearer picture of how well the crop is actually using the nutrients that it has available, instead of looking at each number on its own. Most reports also include a radar or spider chart. It might look complicated at first, but it's really just a quick visual summary of the results. Think of it like a dartboard. The center represents deficiency, the middle ring represents responsive, and the outside edge represents an adequate nutrient level. The nutrients closest to the middle are the ones that deserve your attention first. It's an easy way to spot potential problems before digging into the numbers. In this case, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, calcium, and manganese are testing deficient. Boron and zinc are testing responsive, and potassium, magnesium, and copper are testing adequate. Each individual value for each nutrient is listed to the left of the radar chart. Below that chart, you'll usually find a detailed table that breaks everything down nutrient by nutrient. It shows the normal range for each nutrient, where your samples fall within that range using a color-coded bar, and often includes a recommended product and application rate along with a short note explaining why that nutrient matters. This is one of the most practical parts of the report because it doesn't just point out a deficiency, it also suggests what you can do about it and why that recommendation makes sense. It gives you a good starting point for discussing the results with your agronomist and deciding what should be prioritized. At the end of the day, the biggest advantage of tissue testing is timing. A corn crop's nutrient needs change as it grows, and finding Finding a deficiency early gives you a chance to correct it before it starts costing you yield. If you wait until you can see symptoms from the road or until a key growth stage has already passed, the crop has likely already lost some of its potential. Tissue testing isn't just telling you how the crop is doing today, but it's helping you make better decisions while those decisions can still make a difference.